Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So I've been going through well, first let me make sure I'm up. I want to dive into the story. Yeah, good, I'm up. Let me make sure sound and everything else is like, yes, I have shit I want to get off my chest. But that being said, if nobody can hear it, what's the point? Good. And playback is good. Good. So first, I try to do this in my videos because I want to make a point. To be aware of it, that's this first point. I want to thank all my subscribers. I want to thank all the people who donate. I want to thank all the people who watch my videos. Even if you disliked the video, if you sat there and watched it and gave me the benefit of the doubt, fuck it. Thank you. I appreciate it. This includes people who give through Super Cash or I guess PayPal also. So thank you very much. You guys are absolutely appreciated. I I don't know how to start this. So if there's a wayward Democrat, and that person ended up on this channel, say you're not Democrat, say you're independent, say fuck it, somebody who's not typically firmly on the left, but who for the most part float in that camp of moderate Democrat, but for whatever reason, you've had questions. And you've looked at this and you've questioned what you consider to be typical, normal reality. Not physical matter reality, but reality. Your thought space, the stuff that you look at, and the paradigm of the world that you take on to be true. You start to question that slightly. It's something that's called the tear in that particular faculty, whatever that particular faculty is. I would say that tear started in the election, 2016 election, that we're still stuck in the reverberations of that particular election because that was a massive fucking deal that took place. But for whatever reason, you're questioning these things and you ended up here. You ended up on this channel. First, thank you for ending up on this channel. Two, I'm going to ask a basic question. And you should come to certain conclusions when I ask this question. And I think that's the crux of what's taking place. And this is the thing that's bugging me. Because it's like, this is an amazing fucking prospect that they're asking people to swallow. And true to form, you do have the people out there stomping for them to swallow it. But I want you to just understand what you're being asked to swallow. Meaning from media, mainstream media, and your political leaders. Hillary Clinton had, and this corresponds to the Mueller investigation. Mueller saying that there were Russian trolls involved in the election process. Now, he admits that, yeah, they didn't really play a part. Well, good. I'm glad he admits that. And he admits that Trump wasn't necessarily associated with this. Okay. Now, just so we don't get off base, the premise of the original investigation, Trump said they wiretapped me. Yes, they were wiretapping. They used a FISA warrant. A warrant that was developed off of a dossier. That particular dossier, it was for the most part bogus. It was unverified. Comey himself said it was salacious and unverified. And you ended up for having one source for that particular dossier, and yet they were able to get a FISA warrant on it, despite it being paid for by the political opponent. All right. That's the premise of this. That's where all of this started. That's where this started. That was the whole pretext of this. This was the reason why they were getting the warrant on Carter Page and all this other stuff. That's why. Rod Ronstein, I think I pronounced his name right, in this Russian trolls thing, has said, we don't see association between Trump and Russia. Now the pretext, again, was all this was Trump colluded with Russia. And I'm making the point that I understand Mueller's still doing his investigation, but what these people are blowing up at and losing their minds over, as if this investigation turns something up, is Russian trolls. No link to Trump. That's the first point. Now, the second point I want to make is they're asking you to forget that point. But they're asking you to take on an amazing fucking prospect. Assume what they're saying is true. Take Trump out of it. Assume what they're saying is true. And for the moment, think about the hysteria that's taking place in regards to Democrats and the way they're acting about this, and even media personalities, the way they're acting about this. They're saying Russian trolls, people who got on Twitter and Facebook and wrote mean things about Hillary Clinton, Russian trolls were into cyberspace and writing these memes and narratives. Now, they're saying that the memes and narratives inflame things so much, so massively. Now, in my other video, I made the point to go through this thing of saying the last studies that took place made the studies, actual studies, people who were looking at it, saying that this media, these trolls, the memes, had little to no impact on the election itself. Go look at the video, I'll put the links in below. That what had more impact was still conventional media. The fact that they gave Donald Trump billions and billions of dollars of media coverage, you know, that had a major effect. You gave a reality TV show host who lives in reality TV this kind of glamour of reality television on nightly news. And you guys benefited magnificently from Donald Trump being on nightly news. It was profitable. I guess the point I'm getting here is all of the media that they labored on Donald Trump, all of the, you know, this angle, that angle, grab him by the pussy, all of these things that strayed far from actual politics and turned this into some kind of reality TV show had more of an effect than the bad memes, the bad names, the Twitter, Facebook things. They're asking you to take the prospect or to take this thing as if it's an act of war, to that Hillary Clinton having over $1 billion to run this campaign, Hillary Clinton herself buying $1 million in Russian trolls to go out and say bad things about Bernie Sanders and bad things about Donald Trump. All of the media, meaning television itself, all of their ads that Hillary Clinton was running, all of the personalities who came out and said vote Hillary, they're asking you to believe that all of that, not to mention all of the newspapers that were on their side, all of the social media also, because it wasn't just one way, all of the social media and the people screaming vote Hillary Clinton, all of the networks saying vote Hillary, that they're trying to say that a few $1,000s or a few Russian trolls writing bad things about Hillary Clinton was able to topple all of that other stuff. They're also asking you to take on the second point, that in addition to that overwhelming, that having some kind of over impact, which I just noted in the studies that it did not, but that is supposed to overwhelm all of the media savvy, all of the media attention, all of the mainstream narrative, all of this other stuff. It's supposed to overwhelm that or move it to such a degree that Donald Trump gets in office. I would say take a look at the campaign map. That's the first point. And the second point is that's an amazing fucking prospect that asks you to believe, that asks you to internalize and to take in as being absolutely real. That is an amazing fucking thing. Here's some Facebook ads. Here's some Twitter ads. And the entire media apparatus itself is overwhelmed by that. Democracy itself is tackled by that. And they're asking you to take this in the face of 70% of the American population saying they cheated Bernie Sanders. Meaning something else that the overwhelming majority of the American public takes is actually to be true. They want you to ignore that completely. They have Bernie Sanders out here shilling for Democrats. They want you to ignore that completely and say, oh my God, Russia and their trolls took down American democracy. Like I said, that is an amazing fucking thing. That is an amazing fucking thing. And even if you say that's true, like even if you're one of those people who say, yeah, man, but it's a big deal, man. We can't let Russia, you know, we can't eat Russia's lunch. We can't have Russia just getting away with that stuff. Even if that's you, even if you're that guy, if we're doing the same thing, can you make the case? Do you have standing to make the case if you don't necessarily hold a moral high ground in this process? And I don't even need you to look at, you know, 20 years ago. You have open air slave trades in Libya right now. Do you understand that? Do you understand the world to which you live? That's us. We destroyed a country that, because we didn't necessarily like the guy who was running that country. Thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people died in that war. And Democrats called it a good war. Hillary Clinton herself giggling like a schoolgirl. I'm asking, where's our standing to make this case when we have literally destroyed countries just within recent memory? Have we forgotten Iraq? 1 million people dead. They had weapons of mass destruction. You understand that going into a country and blowing it to shit, meaning destroying the government itself, destroying the governmental apparatus of the country itself. Which do you think is worse? Paying trolls, and I'm glad we call them trolls, because I don't want to give it any more legitimacy than we need to. Trolls, people who said bad things, who write bad memes. What do you think is worse? Trolls, or actually destroying government bombs, things that blow shit up, things that kill people, and things that create havoc and turmoil? I'm asking about standing. That's what I'm asking here. Even if you make the case of saying, hey man, they moved that election a few percentage points. Fuck those studies. They moved it a few percentage points, and it was enough for Hillary Clinton to lose. Even if that's you, you understand that countries do this. Particularly this country, us, the country that we're sitting in right now, does this, have done this, and have done this to a greater extent than just paying trolls to write bad names. And to make my point felt, because I don't want to just say it without actually giving any kind of evidence to back it up, even though I don't necessarily think this is something I need to back up with evidence, because I think people intuitively know. This is The Guardian. Revealed United States spy operation that manipulates social media. And by the way, there was something else I wanted to say on this. There is something dramatically offensive in the arguments that's being made here. So in one case, Bernie Sanders out there shilling for Democrats, pushing this narrative, showing utter weakness, utter and absolute weakness. Oh, it was Russia. I read it was Russia. When it found that I had no chance of winning because they hacked the election. I mean, they cheated. They cheated me. He didn't say they cheated me. That would have took a little bit more courage. But by the time they realized that I didn't have any chances on winning the election, they started putting out bad memes. They were bashing Hillary Clinton. They instigated themselves into Black Lives Matter. Now, explain to me, Mr. Sanders. Explain to me, Senator Sanders. And for that matter, if you believe this, again, if you follow this particular narrative, do you honestly believe that it was Russians that instigated the issues with Black Lives Matter? That's why they were pissed. Or it was the cops shooting people in the face and getting away with it over and over and over again. What do you think was more of an issue? Cops shooting people in the face and getting away with it? Or do you think it was those pesky Russians? Those pesky Russians. Oh, those pesky Russians are at it again. Writing bad memes. Getting people stirred up. I can guarantee you that it's the cops shooting people in the face. It had nothing to do with Russians putting out bad memes. It was those same cops getting away with it. And there was this feeling that there was no such thing as justice, or justice, in this case, once again, is selective. I mean, yeah, you put the boot of America on some people in society itself, but others, not so much. Cops would walk over and over and over again. Do you think the gentleman that's with the power afro, that's kneeling in the football field, do you think he's doing that because of Russia? Or do you think that he's doing that for the reason I just espoused? People getting shot, people being beat, people being harassed for the color of their skin. And cops having no accountability whatsoever. Which one do you think it is, Sanders? You think it's the actual reality of the situation that people live, or do you think it was those pesky fucking Russians? That's kind of what I'm getting at here. This is insanely ridiculous. That's what they're asking you to swallow this in and take this, their paradigm of the world in this case, and they're howling about it. What do you think is more true? Russians or people being shot in the face? No accountability. I'll put my money on the no accountability. Let's go back to this issue of standing. Oh, and by the way, It wasn't the Russian Sanders that pissed people off in your campaign, the people who you're now gutting at the knees. It was the fact they cheated you. Do you know how gross this is? The guy who got cheated, who was up there crying as they paraded your body about the DNC, that guy is now out here shilling saying, yeah, it was the Russians. It was the Russians. When it seemed that I had failed miserably in my candidacy because I didn't want to call out cheating, and I turned around and I supported Hillary Clinton, it was those pesky Russians. It was those pesky Russians. It wasn't that my people knew that they cheated me. It wasn't that at all. That they felt that they were being shafted. They felt it was unfair. They felt they were being lied to. It wasn't any of that. It wasn't any of that. It was those pesky Russians. You're cutting your own candidacy off at the knees, whether you realize it or not. If you can make the argument that status quo failed, that their legitimacy itself was being questioned, then you should have made that argument, and you did make that argument. Now you're making the argument that ultimately the reason that people were pissed off and upset and wanting something different is because of those pesky Russians. You're cutting yourself off at the knees in order to parade this ridiculous argument. U.S. spy operation to manipulate social media. What I'm making here, so let's be very clear, I'm making an argument of standing. If Johnny, at the end of dinner, at the end of school every day, found the weakest kid in the school and punched that weakest kid in the school in the eye, because Johnny got his kicks off of punching kids in the eye. If that's if that's what Johnny did, if that's how Johnny got his kicks, am I really going to care if somebody else came to the school the very next day for whatever reason, found what Johnny did and beat the shit out of Johnny? Can Johnny now go to the school principal and cry, hey, somebody hit me in the fucking eye? That big kid over there, he just came out of nowhere and punched me in the eye. I was in the process of beating the shit out of this other kid, and when this other kid punched me in the eye, I understand we punch people in the eye a lot. I understand I do that. But it's still unfair that kid punched me in the eye. Can you really do that? Can you really make that argument? Can you have this much hysteria associated with something that we ourselves do flagrantly? And like I said, even beyond this idea of cyber warfare, literally destroying countries. Destroying countries. Libya was a real country. Iraq was a real country. Those were real countries. The countries that we're bombing now, Syria is a real country despite U.S. efforts to undermine the country. I'm asking the question of standing. Do we have standing to bitch and moan at the way we're bitching and moaning if this is the way we interact with the world ourselves, and to far greater degrees? Let's take a look. U.S. spy operation that manipulates social media. This article's at the bottom. Military sock puppet software creates fake online identities to spread pro-American propaganda. The United States military is developing software that will let it secretly manipulate social media sites by using fake online personas to influence internet conversations and spread pro-American propaganda. A California corporation has been awarded a contract with the United States Central Command, CENTCOM, which oversees U.S. armed operations in the Middle East and Central Asia, to develop what it describes as online persona management service that would allow U.S. servicemen or servicewomen to control up to 10 separate identities based all over the world. The project has been likened by web experts to China's attempt to control and restrict free speech on the internet. Critics are likely to complain that it would allow the U.S. military to create false consensus in online conversations, crowd out unwelcome opinions, and smother commentaries to reports that do not correspond with his own objectives. I love how they say, critics are likely to complain. Critics are likely to complain. It's like, we don't really have a perspective in this at all. We have no perspective. We're the Guardian. We have no perspective. Who knows how they're going to use the software that's literally designed to manipulate the conversation and to manipulate and put down certain opinions or personas that it doesn't particularly like, to pretend as if they're consensus. You understand that people tend to have this weird quirk where they need to follow in line with public consensus, meaning they're less likely to involve themselves into a conversation that, even if they disagree with what's being said, if you have a large number of people who are on one side of that conversation. It's a suppression technique. It's to change the debate, to essentially put out a particular narrative and then have massive amounts of personalities backing up that particular narrative. Critics are likely to complain that it would allow the U.S. military to create a false consensus in online conversations. That's exactly what they're going to do. It's not about critics. It's exactly what they're going to do. Guardian, you have access to a lot of information going back into the past. Meaning you have relatively clear understanding of what the United States has done in previous operations from the standpoint of military and from the standpoint of Secret Service. Why can't you come to a conclusion? Why do you need to say critics say? Why do you need to put this in this third-person way? What are they likely to do? Explain to your public, what are they likely to do? Not just what critics say. I hate when they do that. We're going to stand out of this, and we're going to be neutral when we're having this conversation. And we're going to say, there is no such thing as neutrality. There is no such thing as neutrality. Imagine Nazis murdering people in the streets, and the newsman comes out. Critics will say that, you shouldn't have murdered that guy in the street. Critics will say that they shouldn't have invaded that country, or they shouldn't have taken this other country here. Critics will say that we shouldn't put people in the ovens. Is it critics, or do you have an actual goddamn opinion based on some kind of historical context? What people are looking for is this idea of context. They just want to understand what the fuck is going on, and a consistent narrative that makes sense and treat the parties to some degree fairly. Why do you have to say critics say? Sorry, that has nothing to do with this particular conversation and nothing to do with the argument. It just annoys me. My point here is, this is exactly what we're doing. Like, you understand that the military, that the United States military, central, like Secret Service, is doing the same thing. What the NSA was doing, what the CIA was doing, essentially building out services to be able to spy in and attack other countries all throughout the world through their internet, their providers, hell, through the devices themselves. You understand that this is what we're doing. I'm just trying to make the point that, do we have standing to be outraged in the way that people are being outraged? And again, I also kind of make this point. We've destroyed countries. Like, I find this to be an amazing point that I have to even argue. I don't understand the hysteria here. I don't understand hysteria here. Take a look at this one. I love this one. This is one of my favorites. Fox News. Fox News. Listen to this director of the CIA. She's asking him at some point, well, hey, look, has America invaded networks like this? Have we done stuff like this? I mean, shit, man. We're talking about Russian trolls. Have we engaged in this type of behavior? I mean, with all the hysteria and people being freaked out and mad and angry. Have we involved in the same thing? Listen to his answer. Now, I'm going to play the whole thing, but particularly when she gets to that point. Listen to his answer. And he's giggling. He's so ecstatic by the hypocrisy of this that he goes on a giggling rampage. I love it. It's awesome. Let's see. Come on.
It may not have affected the outcome of the 2016 election, but the Russians were able to pull off a wide-ranging, aggressive, and brazen attempt to interfere in the campaign. So can our intelligence agencies stop them from doing it again? Let's ask an old friend, former CIA director, Jim Woolsey. Jim, it's great to have you on. Thanks for being here tonight. This is wild. I mean, this indictment today was wild. I mean, they were organizing all sorts of things. They were working for that Jill Stein, trying to help her. They were anti-Trump and pro-Trump on one day after the election. What's that all about?
They want to be a force, and they want to disrupt things. They call their big overall program disinformation. And they've been doing this since the 1920s, 1930s. What's new is that they do it with cyber. But they didn't have much luck disrupting American elections back in the 1930s or 1940s. But they've been doing that to other countries all along.
By the way, just so we're clear, they didn't have any luck disrupting this election either. I guess the key point that I want to get across here is they're howling at the moon. Howling. Oh my God, these guys were interfering with our election. Howling. But none of them will tell you that this affected the outcome of the election. Democrats will scream and moan about it. They will bitch and complain. But they also understand that this did not affect the election. They're howling that this is some kind of act of war. That a country is doing what a country is doing. Again, I bring up this question of standing. and just so we don't stray too far away from my main point, two points. The first that I made when this video started, they are asking you to accept that Russian trolls, Twitter and Facebook, saying bad things about Hillary Clinton, overwhelmed all of the side, meaning all of the newspaper, all of the press, all of the ads that Hillary Clinton was running, all of the appearing on Jimmy Kimmel, appearing on this talk show, that talk show, all of the speeches, all of the media personalities, all of the newspapers, all of the networks, all of these people, all of the support from these people, not to mention $1 billion, over $1 billion, overwhelmed, or this was assailed by Twitter and Facebook ads. Forget the fact that Hillary Clinton had her own Twitter trolls, $1 million in Twitter and Facebook trolls. The second point of my argument is standing. Do we have standing for this hysteria if we ourselves are doing the same thing? And isn't it blistering hypocrisy for us to bitch about this at all, considering that we're doing the same thing? If the media show that's having this conversation doesn't bring up this point of standing, then that media show is lying to you, and it's not giving you proper context from which to frame the behavior. Let's take a look. Let's keep watching.
Ian Mihai, the head of Romanian intelligence who defected in '79, says that there are more Russians involved in disinformation than there are in their armed forces.
How about the Chinese, Jim? What do they do to try to disrupt things? They're disrupting a lot of things around the world for us. I know that.
So far, not the same way the Russians do. But the Russians, I don't know, they Photoshop photographs of the Pope to make him look like he's saluting to a German Nazi officer. They just...
you don't think the Chinese are involved in this type of activity? I mean, they have an economy that dwarfs Russia's. They're a standing army of 2.3 million people. They're militarizing space, stealing our technology. I mean, I think it's important that we stop this Russian stuff. But every time someone says Russia, I say China, China.
Oh, you should.
This is awesome. I don't know who this person is. Laura Ingram. Okay. She's awesome. I love her. She's like, yeah, Russians are bad. I get it. But I want to punch a Chinese. I want to punch an Asian. That's who I want to punch. Why do we keep talking about these Russians? I want to attack a Chinese. I want to choke the shit out of a Chinaman. Like, she is really on this thing of China. She's over the top on China, man. All right, let's keep going. I just think it's fucking funny.
Good. It's that's right. They are strategically a lot smarter. The Russians basically are like the old fellow who lived next to the Lincolns in their farm when he was a little boy. Lincoln said the old boy used to say, "I don't need much land, just what adjoins mine." That's Russia. I mean, I got some Georgia. Let's take some Ukraine. That's pretty much.
But they have an economy smaller than the size of France. I mean, they don't. I mean, come on, compared to China. I mean, China's like eating our lunch on so many fronts.
Headed down, and it gives.
You know what's wild about this? I can't believe this is where we've fallen. Fox fucking News. Fox fucking News. She's like, it's a right wing way of dealing with this. So it's still put in a weird way, where I would have said, certainly there are other threats than Russia, and explain why I think that way. And she does. She explains, you know, like the amount of money we increased our military, like $80 billion, was the entirety of their military. Like they try to put it in perspective of what they're fear-mongering about in this particular case. He's making the argument, if you notice, he says, oh, they just want, let me give some Georgia, let me take some of this. He's making the argument that, look, Russia, it's not, this idea of Russia being a threat because they're going to take over the world is insane. Now, he's a right-winger, so in his mind, they're still going to take the land that's around, you know, they'll take that land, but they're not going to fuck around with this other stuff. It's just, it's weird to hear him make the argument in this way. It's just couched in a right-wing way. It's strange to me. It's not enough to say, yeah, we're acting like Russia's a threat. These guys are not a threat to us in this way. You know, the threats are coming from inside. If you look at all the problems associated with us and what's going on, you know, you can deal with the issues of us before ever getting to this issue of Russia. Like, you can make the argument a different way. That's all I'm saying. But her workable point of view of the world is not to say, no, Russia is not a threat. She can't just say that and leave it at that. It's, Russia's not a threat, but oh my God, the fucking Chinese. The Chinese are gonna eat. They're gonna come to get us and eat our puppies. It's just a weird way to hear it, I guess, but I'll take it. I'll take it. I don't necessarily like it, but I'll take it. Because at the very least, they're trying to make the point of minimizing this thing of the hysteria that Democrats were taking on this one. And lefties, they're looking for a paradigm of the world and try to make Hillary Clinton's loss be something else other than her just failing. They want to make it look like Russia did it. So Fox is going to minimize it. Let's hear him. By the way, Fox is right.
Gives us some leverage. If we can work to get the price of oil down in the 30s, well, 40s even, we will create a very, very unhappy Putin.
But we don't want to push Russia to China, though. That's the last thing we want is a Russo-Sino alliance.
We just want to weaken them because we can deal with them a lot better if they're weak. I was negotiating the Conventional Forces Treaty in Europe in '89 when the Berlin Wall went down. And you've never seen such nice Russians. Let me tell you, all you got to do is destroy their strategy. They're sweethearts.
But isn't Trump doing that with pushing all this domestic energy production? We are soon going to become the largest exporter of energy in the world. Isn't that a weapon against Russian expansionism?
It's good, but it's really mainly about a balance of payments. What matters more is the price. If you can get the price not up there in the 70s and 80s, but down in the 30s and 40s, and you can do it just by letting.
Well, the glut. We have a glut of energy being produced with fracking and everything else.
Yeah, that helps. But you can also, to get the price down, you can give people an incentive to have 2 fuels to choose from at the pump, at the filling station. And once you do that, you've got arbitrage that takes the price of oil down. And
what it sounds like they're talking about, and again, because they're right wingers, they completely miss the wildness of what they're saying. Look, you don't need a military solution for this. You don't need a military solution to this. If your issue is Russia, and if you're a right winger and you're like, oh, fucking Ruskies. If you're a Democrat and you're a neocon also, and you say those fucking Ruskies, your issue and your solution here has nothing to do with attacking Russia. It has nothing to do with screaming at the top of your lungs about this being this kind of act of war and all this other stuff. Bring it down. Your issue here is getting the price of oil down to like $30 a gallon. He's making the point that you have other solutions here. A Green New Deal. A Green New Deal. Meaning, if you're getting America out of the oil business, if you're pulling us out of the oil business, you're producing these technologies that allow us this idea of green energy in the way that you don't necessarily need oil. You're undermining this idea of price of oil around the globe, particularly when oil stopped being the commodity in that particular way. You have other options. That's his point. You have other options. Now, me as a lefty and somebody who's concerned about the fucking planet and having a planet here for me to, pucker about on until into my days. I care about that stuff. As right wingers, not so much. But at the very least, bring up ideas on how would you go about doing that. The best thing that she can come up with is, hey, isn't it, us fracking and fucking over the environment in the way that we do? Isn't that good? Isn't that good? And he's like, yeah, it's all right. I mean, it's not horrible, but the conversation that they're having is amazing. They never take the next step. They only get to the brink of an idea. It's like minimizing what's taking place in regards to the Russia thing, minimizing the threat that Russia poses to us, minimizing the impact in the election itself, meaning making this kind of argument of, look, countries do this. Countries do this. This is the way countries interact with one another. I want them to get to the point of standing. I'm amazed by this conversation. I don't watch Fox News, and so when I watch it, sometimes it's mind blowing to hear the way that they talk about these things. Even when they're downplaying this idea of war and threat, they're adding in another threat to supplant what people are considering a threat in the first place that they're downplaying. It's just weird. Let's keep going.
Into the 30s or 40s, and
so lots of different ways
care
to
about that. The Russians care about that a lot.
Obama didn't do much in response to this meddling in our election. They knew back in 2014, long before Trump got into the mix, that this was a problem. But what, I mean, as far as I could tell, they just allowed that Uranium One sale to go through with that CFIUS committee.
Really a bad call.
Yeah, so that helped Russia. So what do we do? How do we stop this in the future? Weaken them economically, and then what?
I think what we really want is to get them to start pulling in their horns and coming back out of Georgia, back out of Ukraine. We need them. We need to turn them around because they are
the Fox
taking
News, I
over.
remember.
Even
Here we
with
go.
their military and other inadequacies, they are taking over a lot more of Eurasia than they should, and it gives them heart as they take more and more under their wing.
Have we ever tried to meddle in other countries' elections?
Oh.
Now, you know the answer to this already. When I started this video, I kind of made the point, like, I shouldn't even have to make this argument. Like, this should not even be something that needs to be broached. I should not have to make this point of standing. I shouldn't have to make that particular point. That point. If you ask the question of does the United States do this to other nations, you already know. If you know that we destroyed an entirety of a country, if you know that we destroyed another country, if you know that we've been undermining that government in Syria, if you're completely aware that we have military in 70% of the globe, we've been bombing one country after the next, and the president having the power of a king, and Congress allows the president to do it. If you know that, if you know about the mass surveillance, illegal mass surveillance, if you know that Germany was pissed off because the United States was essentially spying on their countries, if you know that, do I really need to make this argument a standing? Because you know what this guy is about to say. You know what he's about to say. But let's hear him say it. Don't take my word for it. Take his.
Probably, but it was for the good of the system in order to avoid the communists from taking over. For example, in Europe, in 47, 48, 49, the Greeks and the Italians, we
don't do that now, though. We don't mess around other people's elections, Jim.
Only for a very good cause.
Can you do that? Do a Vine video on a former CIA director.
Only for a very good cause in the interests of democracy.
All right, thanks for being here. It's always great to see.
I love her Ingram, sir. She goes into giggling, like, meddling in other people's elections. Meddling in other people's elections. And he's like a grinning idiot, happy as a lark when he gets on this subject. You know, the entire, everything else is, this country's out to get us and all this other stuff. And then it's like, we don't do that now, do we? Only for the good of the country. We only do this for their best interests. We just do it for the best interests. We don't have standing to be bitched. To be pissed off. That's my point. You can say we need to stop Russia from meddling, or we need to stop any country from meddling in our elections, and we need to make a better and stronger electoral system. You can say that. I would applaud you on that. I would be like, fucking A, I'm right there behind you. Right there behind you. Where do I sign up? That's what I would say. But this is different. This is different. This is a one-sided, selective justice, look at them, not us, approach to going about this particular affair. And one side is doing it purely for political ends. And I got to be honest, I don't think the rest of America all that much cares. That being said, there is a spectrum, meaning the media itself, and the media apparatus is just one single spectrum of thought. There's just one that just has a lot of money and puts a lot of bullhorn behind it. Doesn't necessarily mean it's legit. It's almost like the number of people who watch it to some degree makes it to some degree legit. I just want to make the point. In this conversation, he's smiling and she's laughing at us and injecting ourselves into other countries' elections. Essentially saying, yes, we do that. We still do that. Yes. Yes, we've done it back then. We still do it now. We're standing. Where's the standing? Now, if these people are right, and this will be my last point. If injecting ourselves into somebody else's country in this way is some kind of act of war, what is this? Obama's general pleads guilty of leaking Stuxnet operation. General James Cartwright was favorite of the commander-in-chief, but that couldn't save him from the White House's war on leaks. Stuxnet was a virus that we essentially dropped into the Iranian computers to make the nuclear facilities blow up. It was giving them bogus readings, and in giving bogus readings, it was fucking up their nuclear plans, their ability to I think it was mine uranium. It eventually got onto the web, and when it got onto the web, people started pulling it apart. I can't think of the name of the book, but they go to the president and they tell him, it's like, yeah, it's out. And he said, do they know where it's from? He's like, no, they don't. It's all right. Meaning they knew at some point people were going to pick it apart and say, hey, this looks like a cyber weapon, because it was a cyber weapon. And eventually it was attributed to the United States, and if I'm not mistaken, in collaboration with Israel. That again is us using cyber warfare to attack another nation. I guess I'm trying to make this point. I don't understand the outrage on this. In fact, I'm fascinated, but there's outrage at all on this. And to me, it really does feel like the correct analogy is, here's a bully that slaps and punches people every day at school. And one day, somebody who's bigger than him transfers to the school and punches him in the eye. And he is now angry and outraged. And he goes to the principal and says, hey, that guy punched me in the eye. What the fuck? What the fuck? I don't like being punched in the eye. It's unfair. Now, people like me point out, but yeah, don't you do this every day yourself? I mean, aren't you the guy who goes out there and does the exact same thing? Now, I do this because I take the Howard Zinn approach. I take the Noam Chomsky approach. If it's something that we ourselves are doing, can we really bitch about somebody else doing? And in this case, that principal was taking that particular principle. They would tell that guy to go fuck himself. We are supposed to be outraged by something that we ourselves do. And, by the way, something that had little to no effect on the election. So, that's what they're asking you to buy. I find this to be fucking amazing that I'm seeing stuff like this. And when I'm saying outraged, I mean people are flipping out. So, this is Glenn Greenwald. I always say Glenn Greenwald is a lion. Consensus emerges. Russia committed an act of war on par with Pearl Harbor and 9/11. Should the United States response be? Should the United States response be similar? I'm going to put the article at the bottom, but I'll put this part. But the last few days have ushered in an explosion of this rhetoric from politicians and journalists alike. On Friday night's Chris Hayes show on MSNBC, two separate guests, Democratic Congressman Jerry Nadler and longtime Clinton aide Philip Reince, posited Pearl Harbor as the equivalent of Russian meddling, provoking a shocked reaction from Chris Hayes. The Washington Post's Karen Tomte, complaining about Trump's inaction, asks readers to imagine how history would have been judged Franklin Roosevelt in the aftermath of Pearl Harbor if he had taken to the radio waves to declare that Tokyo was laughing at their asses off, or if George W. Bush had stood in the rubble of the World Trade Center with a bullhorn and launched into a name-calling tirade against Democrats. David's Axis of Evil From went back a century earlier to write that Trump's inaction amounts to a dereliction of duty as grave as any since President Buchanan looked at the other way as the southern states of Georgia pillaged federal arsenals on the eve of the Civil War. John Podesta, who served as Bill Clinton's chief of staff as well as Hillary's 2016 campaign chairman, called Trump a draft dodger for failing to engage in what he called as war with Russia. These people are idiots. These people are absolute idiots. I'm sorry, they are. I don't like to call people stupid, but these people are idiots. They have a political bias, an extreme political bias. And that political bias pushes them to say shit like this because they want to attack Donald Trump. All of this is political gamesmanship. None of this is legit in the way that these guys are. They're hyping this up. They're being selective in what they choose to focus on. You know, they had a march today with those kids kids marching on the United States government to try to get the government to do something about weapons or gun violence. Explain to me, what is more important? If the media has a role in shaping the narrative that takes place, what about a narrative that says, hey, it's time that government does something about guns, or at the very least about gun violence, and there should be a bunch of technocrats, people who are bright and people who are smart, and they should put those people in a room and come to some conclusion on why people go into schoolrooms and shoot other people in the face. And we should look at the results of that particular thing and come to some kind of conclusion from a political context to deal with those issues. What if the media stuck with that narrative day after day after day after day after day, attacking and tearing down one politician after the next who was against those things? Now, that's, for all intents and purposes, what they've done with Trump and Russia, even though they've made no link at all between Trump and Russia. They're selectively focused on a particular thing. Democrats are howling about a particular thing because it adversely affects their particular side. They don't want to necessarily talk about their failings. They want to talk about anything else. So, a bunch of trolls. People who said bad things about Hillary Clinton on Facebook. That's the topic. That's what we're lavishing all of this praise on. And we have no standing at all to make this case. I find this to be amazing. That's all. This is an amazing fucking argument that they're making here, and they're asking people to accept. All right, let's see. All right, I'm in the middle of a conversation. They're warmongers. Yes, they are warmongers. Brandon Wilson, I'm making dinner and running back and forth from laptop to stove. I'm looking fuzzy. Am I? Fuzzy wuzzy. D. Martin, Bernie has good intentions, but he's not strong enough to defy Democrats. I gotta be honest, I don't care about his intentions. I mean, yeah, I don't care about his intentions. I don't like, he's undercutting himself. Like, and it becomes this thing of, if you're running in the Democratic Party and you're not strong enough to at least back away from this particular narrative, what does it mean for what you would do once you're in the party itself? He's saying he's not strong enough. Yeah, well, strength is necessary. Brandon Wilson, thank you. Honduras, Guatemala, Panama, Brazil, Chile, Bolivia, and Haiti. Those were countries that we engaged in essentially toppling their democracies. That we instigated coups, or we took those governments over and put in strongmen in some of those places. I don't understand our standing. I don't understand our standing. These people who are screaming that this is an act of war, these people are insane idiots. I don't understand their standing. CIA backed coups in basically all of the Central and South Americas. Yes, they did. He giggles at American interventions in the way I giggle at American democracy. Parallel 358. Yeah, pretty much. Like that's mind-blowing, right? It's like, yeah, we've engaged in other people's governments and countries. We have. And Laura Ingram was like, oh, that's so fucking funny. That's so fucking funny. Instigating ourselves into other people's countries, and yet screaming at the top of our lungs that this is some kind of act of war. That potentially, because I don't even take it as an absolute, that Russian trolls did this, or that this is in association with Vladimir Putin. I'm taking that stuff. This is their narrative. It may have happened, it may not have happened. But regardless, even if I take their narrative as true, I don't understand their standing. Don't understand their standing. I mean, this is an amazing fucking thing. No, this didn't have anything to do with her failing in the election in that way, but we're still fucking angry. Hey, you know we do this also, right? Hey, we choose not to look at the fact that we do this around the world also. We want to just focus on the fact that this happened to us. Poor us. Poor us. We were just sitting here and somebody just slapped us out of the blue. So we were doing nothing wrong. We didn't do anything. We didn't do anything wrong at all. It's fucking amazing. Ghana, Laos, Congo. Yeah, Congo. I forgot about Congo. Indonesia. Yeah. We meddle in every country's election. Skip Rock. Yeah, man. Sadly, I'm not even sure he ever was. Nader, and I think he's trying to say Perot, kind of showed me how they do when it comes to Republicans and Democrats. Yankees, go home, please. Chris Cole, I eat Luciferian troll for breakfast. You, my friend, have an interesting breakfast. Yeah, I followed the story and I thought to myself, this is too stupid. This is far too stupid. And then you see media personalities going along with this, and you're like, why? Certainly people don't believe this. And then I realized, yeah, people do. People do. I have friends out that don't necessarily, they're in their stream, meaning they're in, I think they would consider mainstream. And they drink it. They drink the Kool-Aid. Like, they don't understand that mainstream news is just a stream of thought. That's all it is. And you can either plug into it or not plug into it. But ultimately, it's not, if you're going to say more money adds legitimacy to it, then there you go. Then you can say mainstream news is more legitimate, but only from the standpoint of the amount of cash that's put into it. I would, to some degree, make the point that makes it to some degree less legitimate. They may hit on certain stories, and yeah, people revolve around those particular stories. So in that case, you can call it mainstream also, but that's just more so because of the cash they put into it. It's just a stream of thought. That's all it is. You either accept it or you deny it. Now, like anybody else, if you deny what they're saying, they're like, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist because you deny what we want you to believe. But ultimately, that's what they mean when they say conspiracy theorist or anything else. It's this person doesn't buy what we're selling, and because they don't buy what we're selling, they have their own conspiracy of events. Because what we're saying is the word of God, and it's perfectly true. I don't take it as true or false. It's possible that Russia engaged in meddling in the elections, but if you're telling me that it's Russian trolls, then I'm going to think you're perfectly ridiculous. I'm going to think you're perfectly ridiculous. That woman had over $1 billion, and you're telling me about trolls. That's amazing. And you think of all of the main stuff, like the big stuff, that we need to deal with. I mean, in the country itself, and what they're screaming about is trolls. I just find it to be amazing. Find it to be amazing. Mars to Sirius. Have a good night, y'all. And remember, capitalism is a problem. Co-ops are the solution. By Jamar. By Mars to Sirius. Have a good night. Brandon Wilson. We have COINTELPRO, MK Ultra, the Tuskegee experiment, the Manhattan Project, dropping biological warfare from San Francisco, the Mena Airport CFA drug trafficking, Project Mockingbird trying to change the perspective of the people in the country by paying people off in that country. What's the other one? Paperclip, bringing over Nazi scientists, putting those guys in the NASA in some respects. Yeah, man, what is the Iran-Contra affair, giving weapons and drugs. Yeah, I beat you to it, Brianna. Beat you to it. I'm just saying, the meddling, this is an amazing argument. That's all. Yeah, this is just an amazing argument. That's all. Like, the argument that they're trying to get you to accept is just an amazing fucking argument. Like, the hysteria that they're bringing over this is amazing, and it lacks all the context in the world. This video is purely just from the standpoint of context. Like I said before in the first part, if they're making this case to you, and they don't immediately tell you of the cases where the United States is engaged in this type of operation in other countries, then they are lying to you. They're flat out lying to you, not giving you context to understand the situation that presents itself, is, for all intents and purposes, lying to you to get you to take a particular perspective of the world. If for whatever reason you're here, if for whatever reason you are thinking, wait a minute, this is an amazing fucking thing, they have access to buy, then I hope this argument was sufficient. I hope it was sufficient. So, I forgot the prison program. Yes, Brianna Wilson. Suddenly, CNN put out a piece on South Korea having a Kim Jong-un hit squad. In that case, war breaks out. Any thoughts on why they put that out? I wouldn't be surprised. Why wouldn't they? I mean, if you're having a war with somebody and say war breaks out. I mean, for all intents and purposes, these guys have been at war for the past 50 years. I mean, the war never ended. You would want to get rid of the government by hook or by crook, right? I mean, it's war. That's your goal. You're trying to destroy the government in this case, or at the very least modify it in a way where you can just take over the apparatus and however you want to arrange it. Yeah, the fastest way to that process is to kill Kim Jong-un. If you're at war, that would be the fastest way to the process. I wouldn't be shocked in the least if there was hit squads in that country trying to go after that guy. He's the person in charge. They have a dictatorship. So yeah, if they eliminate him and then put somebody up, either a puppet or put somebody in as a strong man in that case, or for that matter, reunification, or just reunify under the South Korean government, meaning those people essentially apply to South Korean government. It just becomes Korea. I'm not shocked by it. That's all I'm saying. You're at war. You'll be at war. Alright guys, I'm going to end this. This one went much longer than I wanted to devote to it. So, if you stayed here with me, I appreciate it. I have a few more of these that I want to do tonight. So, within the next probably 20 minutes, I will be doing another one. So, hopefully I'll see you guys then. Oh, by the way, I shouldn't have did this at the end of the video. Elizabeth Voss from Disobedient Media is going to be on the show on Wednesday at 5 o'clock. I'm going to do another video separate from this, giving an alert, but yeah, I'll give you guys a heads up. Alright guys, you have a good night.